Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast. This is the #1 home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Richard, and we are back after the holiday break where we saw no hockey for a while, unfortunately. We're going to talk about that and talk about the Ducks and what happened when they came out of the break. They didn't start out so well, but now they've won a couple games, so we'll go into that. Plenty of trade news with Anaheim involving Arizona is out there now. We also have Vegas Knights rumors in there to talk about. They also had a minor league trade, which doesn't really affect much, involving McTavish, but we'll mention that as well. And just stuff going on in the league. It's been crazy with all these players missing, and now they added the taxi squad and all that. So we're going to break that all down for you, plus plenty of your fan questions. But first off, I want to wish everybody a happy New Year. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas as well, and that went good for everybody. Mine was pretty entertaining. I had family that has moved out of California, so I ended up having like 3 Christmas celebrations, which was fun. I got pretty fat on food during that time. And then I also went to Vegas on New Year's, as some of you know, for the Ducks Knights game. And I'll talk about that more when we get to that game. But how were your holidays, Eddie? You have a good Christmas and New Year's?
Oh, yeah, it was fun, really fun. I went to go see my mom. I didn't really do a lot of family stuff. I'm not into the family stuff that often. I did kept a little tradition going. I like to go to a dive bar, one of the dive bars where I used to live in my old hometown. So I went over there by myself to have a couple beers, and it felt good, relaxation, and came back for another Christmas party. So that was fun. New Year's was amazing. I didn't drink last year for New Year's. I stopped drinking after Christmas so I could lose all my weight. So I had a boring New Year's last year, so I actually went out with friends. One of my friends, she came with me too, so we had a good time. It was a perfect weekend. My birthday was that Sunday too, so it was just that party kept on going all week. Monday, I kind of felt everything, but it was I couldn't ask for a better start of the year and everything. So I know we have another special birthday coming up this week too.
Yeah, these Capricorns, man. I forgot to mention that too. Happy birthday, Eddie. And yes, my birthday is coming up. What are we on? One of the 10th here? So it's coming up in 5 days. So that's why we get along, you know. We always joke about it. Hashtag Team Capricorn, right?
Yeah. It was cool too. Thank you. You were the first person to give me a birthday gift. Those tickets to the Ducks and Kings game next month. So that was pretty cool. Fortunate for you, one of your seats has to be filled by a Kings fan, but we have a nice little bet going that if the Ducks win, she has to wear a Ducks jersey. But then on the flip side, if the Ducks lose, I got to wear a Kings jersey. I've never put on a Kings jersey my whole entire life, so the Ducks better pull something off that game because I'm not going to be wanting to put a Kings jersey on.
Oh man, you're just asking for trouble. It's that's going to be interesting what happens with that. Yeah, I remember you had told me that you were looking for tickets, and then I was like, heck, dude, you can take mine and go. It's all good. Go for it. So I'm glad it worked out, that you could go to the game, and yeah, hopefully they win, obviously. We always talk about that. Regardless how the Ducks are doing, please always beat the LA Kings, right? That's one of our big things. Secondly, the San Jose Sharks, right? We always want to beat those other California teams is a big thing. So, but yeah, so we had all the holidays and everything. Things went good. I hope, like we said, everybody out there, things went good for you as well. A lot of stuff going on with the league. We left off with, what is the league going to do? How are they going to fix this? I still think there's more work to be done. We had a poll question, which we're going to save that till later in the show to talk about. But over the break, the league brought back my favorite, Eddie, the taxi squad is back. So we all laughed. We joked in our group chat. The guys are all giving me a hard time about the taxi squad. So I just want to say that I am actually happy about the taxi squad. I mean, it's a good idea. Expand the rosters. Have more room with all the stuff going on. With people being out and whatnot. With either sick, not sick, whatever. And we'll dive into that more. So I'm happy about that. The thing I'm not happy about is when I do the game previews, as you guys all know, I added another section now with the taxi squad back in there. And for those of you that don't know, I get up really early in the morning when I put together the game previews, and now there's just more things I have to double check, Eddie, and that's what drives me nuts.
Oh, I bet it's a weird time right now. Everything switches. You have games getting canceled right before games are supposed to start. You have players that are going in the protocol. You have players in practice being pulled off the ice, and they're put on that protocol. It's just one of those things. You got to constantly keep updating it. You got to keep on it, keep on your toes, because things change within an instant in this in what's going on right now, and it's kind of annoying. Especially all these postponed games, and then going to try to make them up. I just really hope this doesn't translate come postseason, where we're having all this kind of anarchy that's going on right now in the league.
Yeah, because you look at the Ducks before the break, right? They had those games in Canada that were canceled. The league basically canceled. I can't remember the exact number, but it was like over 40 games. Or I shouldn't say canceled. I'm sorry. Postponed over 40 games. Mainly contests between U.S. and Canada teams was the big thing. And then they were supposed to come back on the 27th, and that was the Ducks' first game. It was supposed to be against the Sharks, and they postponed that one. So the Ducks didn't get back into action until they played Vancouver. And I wanted to address one fan's question we had on there. We had the Mighty Jerseys on Twitter. Jared, big follower, sends us lots of questions. He actually sent us this last time when we recorded, but we had already gone through and didn't get to address this question, so I wanted to throw it out there now and get our perspective on it. But he talked about, would this break be good or bad for the Ducks? And I kind of even want to expand that to everybody. And honestly, we've had this discussion, I think, before, maybe the year or two before, Eddie, when the world's been nuts the last 2 years. And I think when they had the break before and they came back and redid the season and all that with the crazy playoff format. But the whole argument, rest versus rust, I am not really a fan of having, sitting out basically for a long time. I just don't think it's beneficial. I don't think the rest helps as much. I mean, we kind of saw that with the Ducks in these games, right? Vancouver, Vegas, Colorado. I mean, they weren't pretty games, to be honest, those 3 games. So I'm not a fan of that. Unless you got a tons of players that are out injured, then you want to heal up and get those guys back. I could see that. But generally speaking, especially playing sports all my life, I think it kind of messes up with your gameplay and your rhythm, Eddie. I don't know if you feel the same or what you think about this rest versus rust argument.
Oh, it's definitely agree. Like any sport you play, any of the big 4 sports out there, even the smaller sports that people don't even really are famous, you have to have that consistency. That's the main key in playing any sport. You have to have that rhythm that's going on. You have to have that consistency. The Ducks were playing at a high level with their consistency, having fun with the game. You start taking out players, you ruin their chemistry. You start taking them off for a week or two, postponing games. You're just throwing off their chemistry. Hockey players are notorious for being creatures of habit. They're notorious for having that routine daily, and you kind of deviate from that. It just kind of throws off and everything out of whack, and it kind of ruins it for the players to try to get that momentum, get that rhythm, and get that normal routine that these hockey players are so used to, accustomed to, and they adjust to, is having that routine. You see a lot of players that are superstitious and will do the same exact thing, drive the same route, walk in the same way, or do the same things if they have a good game. You can't mess with those superstitions. You can't mess with those routines because the protocols that you have in place that are obviously failing. It's not fair to the league. It's not fair to the players. It's not fair to the fans. I think it's just absolutely BS. But I mean, who do I know? I'm just a fan too, so.
Yeah, I just, I think a lot of it comes down to, like you said, it's personal experience too. You play a lot of hockey right now. I played semi-pro football for about 5 years. And, you just look at that and the different things that you do. You have extended time off. You're not out there. It's not just playing, it's practicing too. You got to remember, these guys are out. They're not going to the rink. They're not getting in that rhythm. We saw that became an issue with Zegras during this break too. I know after coming out of it, with the COVID testing, there were a lot of people upset about whether or not he was going to play, and we'll talk about that. It ended up being moot, but we'll get to that later. So a lot of stuff to discuss going on with the league. I do have a little bit of news about us before we dive into the Ducks. We did join the Old City Sports Network. I had looked to joining some other things before in the past, and different things didn't work out with other people. Nothing it just didn't iron out. But I'm happy to join these guys, and we're going to have a lot of stuff coming your way. Not really going to talk about it now, but things that we're going to work on for the show, make things a little bit better for you guys and whatnot. So I'm happy about that. So if you get a chance, check them out. Old City Sports Network. They've got several other podcasts on there. I think they're up to 9 or 10 now covering the league. So just keep that in mind, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later in the show. So let's get to the Ducks here, Eddie. This rest versus rust argument. The rust part definitely played out against Anaheim. They came back. They had the game against Vancouver. And, of course, Zegras is on the COVID list. Comtois on the COVID list. Steele's on the COVID list. They don't have these guys. The Ducks go with the 11-7, lineup instead of the 12-8. And they did okay in the beginning. Carrick got a goal in the first period, and after that, pretty much nothing. Fowler got hurt too, which did not help. They lost in overtime. Bruce Boudreau's the coach now at Vancouver. They've been on a roll, winning all kinds of games like crazy. And this just wasn't a good game for Anaheim. I mean, the game against Vegas and Colorado weren't either. I'll get into those in a minute. But this goes back to Jared's question. You can see right here in this game. And again, you got to take some of this analysis as kind of with a grain of salt because of all this COVID crap. Sorry for lack of a better word, but that's messing with this team big time right now. I know it's messing with other teams too, but it's really messing up with the Ducks. So a lot of line juggling, right, with this team in the last 2 weeks or week and a half or whatever. So, but this was a rough game, Eddie. No doubt about it. The Ducks got almost outshot by a 2-1 margin. One of the few games they couldn't get anything going on the power play either, 0 for 4. What did you think, though? This kind of played into that whole thing of the Ducks being out and also missing key players. It really just didn't help them in this one, but they were able to at least get a point.
Yeah, it made it even worse, too, that I was at this game. A little spontaneous call. I found out I didn't have to work at the last minute. Called my buddy at 5:30. Just coincidentally, he was picking up another friend pretty much a mile away from where I lived. Picked me up, went to the game, had a good time, thinking Ducks were going to get a good win, especially after seeing that goal get scored first on Carrick, his little small little breakaway that he had. Beautiful goal. And like I said, after that, the game just kind of got dry, and I think I was just chugging more beers just to entertain myself than watching the game. But it just was... Ducks were rusty. Ducks kind of played down, and they didn't seem like that same team. I know like their depleted lineup probably had something to do with it. I always hate the 11-7 kind of thing. I just like the traditional 12 forwards, 6 defensemen. I think it works out better instead of trying to kind of juggle 7 defensemen, throw off the whole whack of things and stuff like that. Or you throwing a defenseman on their fourth line and trying to make that work. That just throws off the chemistry, in my opinion. But it was unfortunate the Ducks took the L. I was hoping in overtime they would just sneak one through, maybe go into a shootout. But unfortunately, that didn't happen, and now we're here. It sucks that I was at the game too and they lost. I know I want the Ducks to win a lot, but especially when I'm at the game, it's like I think it's just like I go there. I want to see a win. I don't want to have to drive home with the loss. So.
Yeah, and you know what? It kind of sucks about this is you went to this game and they lost. I go to the Vegas game in Vegas and they lose. And before this, the Ducks were undefeated when you and I were in attendance. So if you guys are mad about the Ducks losing these 2 games, don't blame the break. Don't blame the COVID list. Just blame Eddie and I. We are the reason why they lost these 2 games, okay? Eddie went to the Vancouver game. It's all his fault. And it's all my fault that I went to Vegas on New Year's and saw them get creamed in this game too against the Knights, because then they played this game, and this was a horrible one too, Eddie. But all kidding aside, I couldn't believe it too when you went. I thought, dude, the streak's got to stay alive, Eddie, and then it didn't, and then it took pressure off me going to the game, but then they still lost again.
Yeah, you know what? I think I double jinxed you because out of all the games I've covered this season, I only think I've covered 1 winning game from the recaps. And come Vegas, another recap I had to do that was a losing game. I was like thinking to myself, is it me? Like when I do the recaps, am I giving them that bad of a luck? Like they're just gonna keep losing. That was a rough one in Vegas. I was really hoping that did get the win, especially knowing that you and your wife were there. You guys are celebrities, I heard too. You guys were posted on TV, so that was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, that was kind of funny because I happened to just see Bally Sports put out something, and they're like, "What are you guys doing for New Year's?" So I'm like, well, I'll just send a photo of us and say we're at the game. Like, I didn't really think anything of it. I just was like, yeah, we're at the game. And then I had people messaging me after the game that they had thrown it up on the TV. So I thought that was kind of cool. I didn't really expect that. I just was just throwing it on there, to say, hey, here we are, we're at the game. And this game, actually, this is kind of crazy. A lot of stuff going on with this. So we ended up going and we went and visited my wife's sister out in Arizona, and that's who we spent New Year's Eve with. We didn't stay in Vegas, whatever. We stayed with her, visited her sister and whatnot, because she's just over in Bullhead, which is not too far, about an hour outside of Vegas. Makes it easier, instead of trying to stay there. But went to the game, and for the most part, it was fun and everything like that. I was joking around about the sound. It was really loud down there because I'd been there before, as you guys know, but higher up. If you go sit down low, because we were like 6-7 rows behind the penalty box, man, the pregame, holy crap, those speakers are ridiculous. But in terms of the game, man, what a disappointment. I mean, the Ducks got steal back, but they got down early in this one. And, the second goal at the end of the first period there. And, I mean, this was honestly, this was probably the worst game, if not one of the worst games. I mean, the Ducks only had 16 shots on goal. I think they had like 3 in that third period. Yeah, the Ducks are shorthanded, missing some players. But, dude, and I know the Ducks, I can't remember the record, but it's really crappy against Vegas. We barely win. But, Jesus, dude, this game was horrible. It's just bad. I don't really have anything good to say about this game. They played terrible. I think the only thing I really liked in this game, Eddie, was that Ryan Getzlaf stood up, got in the mix, got into a fight, trying to lead his team, pump up his team. He got that late power play goal, which ended the shutout bid, thank God. I guess, small victory there, even though they lost the game. But it just nothing seemed to go right for them in this game. It was just like, I don't know what happened in this game, but the offense was non-existent. They really had trouble getting the puck through the neutral zone. Was a big problem. The one thing I do think that this game showed is the value of Cam Fowler, because a lot of people were talking about trading Cam Fowler and how he's not worth this or that or whatever. But if you can't get the puck out of your own end and get through the neutral zone, dude, you're in for a long night. And I mean, that's what Fowler brings to this team. And I think that was one revelation from this game, Eddie, is one, we talk about the playoffs, which we got a fan question about. We'll kind of get to that later. I don't know about this team and going far in the playoffs, which you and I have discussed. But I would not underestimate the value of Cam Fowler, especially after this game.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. Another positive I took from this game, if you want to try to, take the glass half full kind of mentality, the Ducks were able to shut out the Knights with 6 different power play opportunities that they had. So their special teams were on point, and the Ducks' only power play opportunity they had, they scored at the very end when Getzlaf ended the shutout bid. That's one of the only positives. What pissed me off this game too is when Getzlaf dropped the gloves, and then you have Delorier going after that next shift, wanting to kind of stand up for his captain and drop the gloves with someone else, and then they give him a game misconduct. I think it's just that's about the dumbest call in the world. It's absolutely. I think things like that destroy the sport. You make it just wimpified. It just makes it not fun to watch, and I think that was one of the bullshit penalties you can ever call on someone when he goes out there and tries to defend his captain, doing his job on the role that he has, and you're taking that away from him because you're trying to clean up the game. The referees, when they get hit and they get accidentally bumped into you, I don't even give a shit. I laugh. They deserve it. I don't care if it's not their call, if they're being told. They had that discretion when they're on the ice, and I think things like that ruin this game, and things like that are making me shy away from the game and not have that same thriving fire passion I had a few years ago when watching the game, because some of these games just get so dry. It's just so boring. This game, I know they lost and they played terrible, but I like seeing the Ducks fight back with those hard hits, fight back with literally fighting and kind of defending themselves from the Knights when they started off strong and throwing their body around. But things like giving Delorier misconduct for going out there and not just starting a fight, not throwing his gloves down and just start beating someone, but just trying to provoke it and ask the other guy if he wants to drop the gloves too. It's just two willing combatants, just let them go. But you want to throw one out. It's just the calls seem lopsided in this game too, but it was just so dumb to see. And I don't know what the refs were, if they lost a bet or if they had some gambling debt they wanted paid off. That's what some of the calls were in favor, of Vegas, including the one where the guy got one of the Vegas players got pushed into his own bench. But things like that, I think that ruins the game. You guys want to build your fan base, and like I said numerous times, you alienate it by the coverage that the lack of coverage you have for fans. But then things like this, when you're trying to water down the game, seems like you're trying to take fighting out of the game altogether. Seems like you're trying to lower down the hits and take those things out of the game altogether too. And that's what really frustrates me about this league and this new way it's transitioning to. It's just getting so boring and watered down. Like I said before, it's going to come to a point where I'd rather watch badminton. It's probably going to be more physical and more entertaining than hockey is going to be in the next 10 years.
It's interesting that you mentioned that part about Delorier, because I was right there and saw that right in front of us, because we were, right by the penalty box, and I saw him chipping. And to me, it's pretty much basically Delorier used foul language and you get a penalty. And that's what I saw. I don't remember the exact words he said, but I remember looking at him, and he was chewing out whoever it was on Vegas. And I think it was a couple people, to be honest. And then that penalty, like you said, was called, and it's like, really? Players cuss all the time during hockey games. It happens all the time. So if that's what you're going to do, then are you going to call a misconduct penalty on everybody every time they cuss? I get it. He's trying to start a fight too. I know there's more to it than just cussing, but I'm just saying, if that's what set the refs off and that's why they did it, that's BS in my opinion. But to the other point you made, you're right. I thought the calls were kind of cheesy. They had 6 power plays. The Ducks had 1. And Vegas was playing rough in this game. They're not any saints. And they got a lot of calls their way. And I'm not saying that the Ducks could have won because of that, because the Ducks played like shit. They did, period. But yeah, they had a lot of calls, 6 power plays. So it was good to see the Ducks kill those off. And like you talked about the emotion, you saw McNabb throwing his body around at the end of this game with only a minute and a half to go. Didn't even matter. I don't know why he laid the smackdown on Carrick like that. I know Carrick got in that fight earlier in the game, and in that scrum, it was like the double fight, right? Or it was like where everybody was fighting at one point during the game in there in the second period. But it was good to see the Ducks come out and with the emotion. That point made sense. It just frustrated me that they didn't translate it into playing better offensively or trying to win and score. That's the part that's frustrating. But as far as this team, sticking together and being a team, I think, dude, Eddie, this game solidified that for sure.
Oh, 100%. Everyone had each other's back, and Grant and Carrick, the little double fight they had. Grant's frustration, that cross-check, but Vegas had it coming. The way they were playing, the way they were taking runs at some of our players, the way one of their lower, Kosier, whatever is that fourth liner's name is, that challenge gets off to a fight, gets off obliged. All that just translates like that team wanting to step up and kind of get their captains back, seeing their captain kind of lead by example and be the first one to step up and just drop them and try to get everything going and not shy away. He could have easily told him, no, like, you're a fourth line player. Who are you? I'm not going to give you that satisfaction, and skate away. But no, it gets off being that old school player mentality that he has, wants to fire up his team. No, he's going to go ahead and do it. So he did, and I respect him for that. I'm glad the team kind of came together and had each other's back. That shows a great team aspect that this team has.
Yeah, that was the one good thing, I guess. Even though they lost this game and a lot of stuff didn't go their way. One last thing I'll add before we go to the next game is that some of the Vegas fans, you're really annoying. I'm just going to tell you that straight up. I'm not saying this about everybody. I'm not making a blanket statement. But there were 2 ladies sitting behind us during this game, and they would not shut the F up. All they were doing was talking during the first and second period, and they weren't even talking about the game. they were talking about trips and cars and all this other stuff. I have no idea why they were even there. And then on top of that, they were gone in the third period. Thank God, because I could actually watch the game with peace of mind in the third period. But that kind of ruined our experience. My wife and I were sitting there like, can you ladies like just shut up? Like, it was just so annoying that it wasn't just the talking, but they're not even talking about the game. So I don't know who they were. I don't know if they knew some of the players on Vegas or what. I don't know, whatever. But I can't stand that. Like people know me when I go to games. When I watch the game, I'm like watching it. I'm not talking. I'll maybe make small talk, but I'm really like that's the one sport. Like I can go to any other game with anybody, BS talk, have a good time, whatever. But when it comes to hockey, I'm really trying to watch, see what's going on, and focus. And God, those two ladies were annoying. I was so glad they left in the third period, Eddie. They were driving me and my wife nuts.
Oh, there's so much stoppage in hockey too, where you can just have that small talk and chit chat. You don't have to be talking during the whole entire game. I mean, I get it if you want to say things here and there, like the small talk during the game, or a play reminds you of something, or talk about the game. But you sitting there just talking about X, Y, and Z, or how you're gonna gamble your next round, if you're gonna vote or bet on red or black, a next roulette table. It's like, what's the point of even be there if you're not gonna enjoy the game? Like I said, so much opportunity to chat during the intermission. You have the whole 15 minutes, all the stoppages, the TV timeouts. You have ample time to talk. So it sucks that you had to go through that, but at least you had that one period where you didn't have to hear them anymore.
Yeah, exactly. So after that, like I said, spent some time with her family, came back home. The Ducks then played Colorado, your other team, and more problems with the Ducks, unfortunately. I was surprised they got Comtois back, but Fowler came back right away, which was a shocker because the way he fell awkwardly into the boards in that game in Vancouver, man, I was like afraid he was going to be out for a while. Aiken said it wasn't a long-term injury. He comes back in this game. I was like, wow, I was very impressed. But then, of course, Getzlaf tests positive. He's out. Zegras, even though he's eligible to come back because it's now 5 days right after a positive test instead of 10, but he kept testing positive. So we had no Zegras, no Getzlaf in this game against Colorado. The Ducks actually start out strong. Carrick, who we were talking about, got a goal in the first period. Fowler, who came back, he scored on the power play. Things actually looked good for the Ducks. They actually played well in the first half of this game, but then it shifted in the second half, and Colorado took over, especially in the third period. The Ducks again getting in penalty trouble. They gave up. They had 5 power play chances against, and they gave up 2 in this one. Usually the penalty kills is really good this season, which still is top 5 as with the Ducks power play, but. They ran out of steam, I think, Eddie. I was impressed in the beginning. I thought, oh man, the Ducks might be able to win this game. Colorado's a good team, but it's a tale of 2 Ducks teams in this game. The first 30 minutes they look good, up 2-0, but then Avalanche 4 goals in the second half of the game, and the Ducks could never come back.
With Colorado, you can't let your foot off the gas one bit, because once you do, they're going to attack. They're not going to stop, and all of a sudden you're going to be losing. Go ahead and ask the Toronto Maple Leafs that were up 4-1 at one point, ended up lost that game against Colorado too. Colorado is a really deep team. They can get offensive threats from everyone on the ice. I think the only X factor that it might have is I'm not sold on their goalie Kemper, but still they kind of proved to the Ducks that the Ducks are playing an elite level team, and it comes down to it. These elite level teams are going to just turn everything up in playoffs, or when they start getting their back against the wall, they're going to fight back and come back even harder. Ducks should have. There's no reason why the Ducks shouldn't have won this game. They started off extremely strong, outplaying them, coming out hard. It seemed like they let their foot off the gas a little bit, and Colorado just took over and went and took them for a ride. And there's nothing really you can do about that. It just comes down to you being an elite team, a team that's full of people, full of superstars. Basically, you have at least 2, if not 3 superstars that they have on their team. And Ducks really don't have that. You're seeing some of the players blossom in the superstars, like Terry. You see Zegras developing into that. Drysdale would be another one I want to say developing into that. And the only true superstar that we have right now is John Gibson. But it's going to take a lot to beat teams like this. So hopefully hopefully they can get it together. But the development we've seen this season with this team seems that in the next few seasons they're going to have that elite level team. When some of the players that step up, we're going to have those 2-3 kind of guys that are elite, not just Gibson. So that's going to be fun to watch. But yeah, it was disappointing. It was my birthday too, so I kind of wanted the Ducks to win. Like, all right. I'm watching it with my friend, and they're mentioning like, "Oh, I think Ducks got this game," and I'm saying, "Hey, don't get too cocky. I know Colorado too. I follow this team too, so." As long as Colorado wins I'll be cheering Colorado on next week, the 20th. I'm going to, it's called Crypto Arena now. I'm going to LA over there to watch the Avs and Kings game. So I hope Colorado wins that game, but how the Ducks get it together and try to figure out when they get up on these teams, especially elite level teams like Colorado, or of a team like Vegas, when Vegas gets their 2 elite players back and they become that powerhouse. If the Ducks start getting up on them, just don't stop. Don't take your foot off the pedal. Don't remove your foot from their neck. Just keep pushing on, keep firing on, and you might have a chance to win this game. You might kind of make Colorado dig themselves in a hole, or when they're backed against the wall, fall over that wall and not be able to come back.
Yeah, I was cracking up about that too because it was your birthday, and I remember we were laughing in the group chat. I go, well, for Eddie, he's gonna win today. It's just which team are you gonna have win on your birthday? So. I mean,
Ducks always first. Ducks are always first, so.
No, I know that, but I mean, you couldn't really lose on your birthday. But yeah, so I mean, this kind of goes back again to Jared's question about the rest versus rust. Same thing. Vancouver, Vegas, Ducks just rusty as hell. Obviously, losing Fowler too didn't help in the Vegas game. It seemed like the Ducks shook off some of that rust in the Colorado game. Couldn't finish. Then they go into the Philly game, and this is really when all the COVID stuff started getting crazy with the Ducks. This game, and then of course the Detroit game after that was postponed. Lots of positive tests and all that. The Ducks, they actually beat Philadelphia. They still had no Getzlaf because he was in the protocol. Zegras still testing positive. Delorier and Grant also went out too. And then you had Carrick, who at this time was sick, didn't test positive, but then tested positive before the Detroit game. So it's just all kinds of craziness. I guess the good thing in this last time span for the Ducks is that they had a lot of young guys come up and make a lot of NHL debuts. So that was good for the Ducks and these younger guys. You had Kindop; he made his debut in this game, and the Ducks ended up winning this game. Troy Terry stole the show, right? He had a hat trick. Comtois back in action too, getting back even in the Colorado game after testing positive. He makes that unselfish play, huge unselfish play at the empty net at the end, and the Ducks took out Philadelphia. And this was a good game. So, the Ducks started out, with some stinkers, kind of a so-so game against Colorado, and then they finally got back and won this game, Eddie. So they started trending upwards, if you will, at this point in time.
Yeah, that's that elite kind of level player we're talking about. We're seeing Troy Terry kind of transition into that player. He stepped up when this team needed him. It was depleted roster. He knew what he had to do. He came up there and he delivered, and it was good to see. He's he's tied for third overall in for goals with 22, tied with Austin Matthews. He's up there with Ovechkin and Draisaitl too. So he's with those elite level players. It's just, seeing him keep developing and seeing how he's going to transition. If it's a fluke of a season, because we've seen players like this before explode one season and then they're kind of never the same again. I don't see it with Troy Terry. I think this is going to be the real deal, and this is going to be one of the first players in a long time that the Ducks will just develop into that elite kind of player. And it's good to see. He was like a 5th round draft pick too, so the Ducks are pretty much extremely lucky to get a player like this and having him develop the way he is. But it was good to see him step up and help the Ducks get that win against Philadelphia, especially being on that losing streak. And Comtois not scoring a goal all season, that unselfish play, kind of goes back when you're talking about Vegas, how this team has that true team mentality, and he kind of just sacrificed getting that monkey off his back to help out his fellow teammate get his hat trick. That was amazing to see, and they just shot up Troy Terry into the ranks of being that goal scorer. I know we talked about it before. I mentioned if can you see Troy Terry hitting that 30 goal mark, and that was something that we both said it was possible. And I think up to now, I think it's not if it's possible, it's going to be when. I know one of the guys, Max Shat, was talking to me on my personal Instagram, and where I was mentioning about the 30 goal scorers. And he mentioned too that Troy Terry's he's on a pace to get 40, and he thinks he's going to get 40 goals. I hope he does. That'd be awesome. But I'll shoot for the 30. Maybe 35 would be reasonable. But if Max is right, I hope he is. That 40 goals would sound amazing for Troy Terry.
Yeah, and I've even seen some people chatting about 50, and I'm like, okay, slow your roll here. Slow your roll. I'm excited too. I think I'm with you too. 30 goals is definitely not unreachable. 40, even that, they could get close to that. If he gets 35 to 40 goals this year, holy crap, man. I mean, that's amazing. But yeah, I like what Troy Terry's been doing. And, you got to think about it, too. He had this hat trick, and Getzlaf wasn't playing in this game. A lot of people were talking about how Terry's exploded, and it's been good. But then some people were saying, well, he's paired with Getzlaf and this, that, and that. Well, he got a hat trick in this game, and he wasn't playing with Getzlaf. So if there's anybody that doubts Terry and his ability, he's able to score goals without Getzlaf, too. So, he's the real deal, man. No doubt about it. And that was the good thing in this game. And yeah, absolutely what you said about Comtois. I totally forgot about that. He hadn't even scored a goal at all this season. He gets one finally later on here we'll talk about. But he had a chance. He had a wide open net. He could have easily shot it in. And he knew that Terry was there by him. He got it to him for that chance to get the hat trick. A completely unselfish play by Max. And it goes back to the whole team aspect, like you said. And that's what the Ducks did. They put together a great win. Obviously, Terry leading the way. But Ducks finally trended in the right way. And then, of course, they're going to this game against Detroit. Everyone's all excited because, you're talking about Zegras against Raymond. We find out that Zegras comes out of the protocol. And then that whole day, that Thursday that the game was supposed to happen, it got postponed, was just like a crazy day. Especially on Twitter with everything going on, because it started out with Zegras out of the protocol. That was, I believe Eric Stevens said it first. Everybody's all excited. Then it came out that Akins wasn't going to play him. And then people were getting all crazy on Twitter about that because Zegras out of protocol but not going to play. And then I saw a lot of people getting upset at Akins. And then Akins comes out, he's got his interview, and he says, well, here's the thing, Zegras hasn't skated in like over 2 weeks. And that's what I think people forgot, is when you're in this protocol thing, it's not just that you're not playing games, you're not practicing either, at least in the Ducks organization. I don't know what the other teams are doing or whatever, but with the Ducks, if anybody tests positive, even those symptoms, they're not even at the arena. They're not even practicing. So I get it. I get where Akins is coming from. He's like, hey, he hasn't been practicing for 2 weeks. If I put him out in a game right now, yeah, he's young and everything, but what if he gets hurt and he's out for a while? Dude, everyone's going to ask for Akins' head. So he's like, hey, man, I'm not going to risk this. Let's wait till the New York game on Saturday and put him in, which made sense. And then that was in the T-Fords article that had that quote. And then I think it was like 5-10 minutes later, then they canceled the game. So then, or postponed it. Sorry. Then it didn't even matter, and everything. And it was then put on Sunday. So the Ducks had the Rangers on Saturday and Sunday. But it's just crazy because then the Ducks had Carrick then finally tested positive after actually being sick. You had Leterrier tested positive, Lindholm, and Gibson. So we had Captain Duck 23 asking, was it a bad or good move for Akins to want to sit Zegras? I mean, it doesn't matter now. It's kind of, like I said, it's over and done with, and the game was postponed till Sunday. But I'm on Akins' side on this one. I mean, why? If you haven't skated for a couple of weeks, then what are you doing? And it wasn't just isolated to Zegras, because Getzlaf came out of the protocol this last weekend, but he did not play in the game against the Rangers, and then instead he played in the makeup game against Detroit. Because the same thing, he'd been out since right after New Year's, so he hadn't skated in about a week, and then Akins held him back. Granted, Getzlaf is older than Zegras, get it, of course, but I mean, he's not treating anybody differently or unfairly, and I think that's the big thing. And unfortunately, this season's so crazy, Eddie. The only thing that's certain is uncertainty, and I think if you're trying to protect your players as best you can, I don't think you can really give a coach a hard time about that.
Oh no, yeah, you have to think of the circumstances. The player is not skating at all, not practicing, and you're just going to throw them in the game when they're back. It's kind of seals their fate for failure. Anything happens, they pull something. It's just they have to get just that rhythm back, and you can't just throw them. Just throw them to the Sharks and expect them to survive, especially, with how the game is, how fast it is, how physical it is. I think it was the right move. Yeah, I was annoyed when I first heard the news too, like what the hell, like how come they're not playing it? But once you sit there and understand the reasoning to it, and understand that these players aren't participating at all with anything to do with hockey or in this protocol, then it makes a lot of sense. Yes, it's frustrating, it's annoying, but it's the right call to keep these players healthy and not lose them long term. I'd rather just have them sit one game so we can have them for multiple games. So it was a bad move when you first hear about it. You first being a fan and you don't want to think about anything else. But I guess being that selfish fan, wanting to see one of the most energetic players in the game today play. But it was the best move and the best situation to do that. And it's fortunate for us that they had to postpone that game, so we were able to see him play against Detroit again. So that I think that was a matchup that everyone was really wanting to see, is these Calder trophy people for the Rookie of the Year going up against each other.
Which we did get to this past weekend, but we'll cover the Rangers here real quick before that. Unfortunately, the Ducks laid a stinker in this one. We then had Perreault made his debut, right, for the Ducks, so that was another player coming out there. Like we said, with all these players and the protocols and all this stuff, Getzlaf was the only one that came out of it, but as we mentioned, didn't play. This game was very similar, I thought, to the Colorado game. The Ducks played okay in the first half, right? They actually got the lead, and they were up 1-0 in the middle of the game. They ended up being tied at 1 after the second period, but good Lord, the third period, they just completely disappeared, and Detroit took over. They got an early goal. New York took over, got an early goal, and then Lindgren got a couple late goals. The Ducks couldn't rally in that. They only had 16 shots on goal against Vegas. They only had 14 shots on goal in this one. They did have a lot of good scoring opportunities, a lot of missed shots. So I don't know if they played as bad as they did in Vegas. I think they played a little bit better in this one. But man, for some reason, the Ducks now are kind of having a hard time in the second half of games, Eddie.
Yeah, we're seeing those Ducks we've seen in the past where they can't play that full game of hockey. I'm not saying like they have that any team can go and play 110% for the whole 60 minutes plus, but you have to step up. You have to at least be in the mix come that second half of hockey or even the third period. You can't start off and play hard and all of a sudden you're pretty much done and take your foot off the gas, and that's how you lose. I know we have a lot of questions for the Ducks making postseason if they can sustain what they've had the first half of the year. Seeing games like this, it's hard to tell. It's hard to say. It's just, they can't play like this in the playoffs. If you play like this in the playoffs, you just sealed your fate and you're done in the first round. You're getting that mid-draft pick and you're back to square one. Something has to change, and they have to really see themselves as either being those pretenders or contenders. And if they really or truly believe that they're a contending team, they can contend with a lot of these elite level teams that won't hold back, that can play those full 60 minutes of hockey with high intensity, with hard hitting, and come at you with an offensive charge all the time. Then they have to figure out what they need to do to change that and move forward from there. If not, just keep doing what you're doing, because you're like, yes, you're still successful this season. Like, no matter what, the Ducks just go on a huge tank and they just kind of just tank the rest of the season. I still think this season is an absolute success compared to the last few seasons that we watched. This team has been fun. They improved on a lot of things that they had to improve on. So, like, no matter what happens, if Ducks make the playoffs or they just go on a big tank, it's still a successful season, and we should be proud as Ducks fans to see what this team is able to accomplish, and not just in that win category, not just what they're ranked right now in the Pacific, but all those things that they improved on as a team, and how they built up and just worked on a complete 180 from what we've seen from the last few seasons.
Oh, absolutely. This team has been doing a phenomenal, way better all the way around. There's still fun hockey games to watch. Even when they didn't play well in Vegas, there was all the fights and all that stuff going on, so that made the game entertaining. The game against the Rangers too, they were down, but they only got blown out at the end of the game. They were still in it for a majority of the game, despite being outshot really badly. Even though they did have a lot of shot attempts that just didn't make it on the net. And it's just hard with this team. It's hard to evaluate. I know a lot of people bugging us about this playoff thing. Now with this COVID stuff and all this craziness going on, these games since the Ducks have come back out of the break, they haven't had a full team. They still haven't had a full team. Even this game against Detroit, you had Getzlaf back in this one, but they're still out. You have Gibson that's out, right? So, I mean, it's hard to really evaluate this team other than what you said, Eddie, is that it's definitely better than where they are last year. I mean, they're in second place right now. They're right behind Vegas. They're not far out of it. So they can definitely make the playoffs. But it's just hard to evaluate them with all this stuff going on. It's just tough. But they did have that makeup game against Detroit, right? That was the game we all wanted to see. They ended up winning this one. This one was very exciting. You had, of course, Zegras against Raymond is the big thing. Everybody's talking about. Siders in there, too. Another guy for the Calder Cup trophy stuff. But this one was a back-and-forth game. You had more debuts. You had Tracy coming up. He made his NHL debut. Dostal, who I really like, came up, played pretty well in this game. And again, Terry getting another goal in this game. There was a lot of stuff going on in this game. I think the biggest thing to me was the overtime in this game with Raquel, Terry, and Drysdale getting, those three were getting stuck out there on the ice in the overtime. I think Raquel was out there like 3.5, 4 minutes or something. It was crazy. I really thought the Ducks were going to lose this one in overtime. And thank God Dostal made the save and got us to the shootout in this one, Eddie.
Yeah, this was a fun and exciting game to watch. The tempo in the first was high. It was a kind of a high-intensity tempo. So I loved seeing that. There was the hits were there. It just the fun plays. It was good. It was good to see more debuts from the Ducks. I know we had Tracy and Perreault each different games almost scored on their first attempt, a shot on goal. It would have been really cool to see them get their first career NHL goal. But yeah, it was a fun game to Zegras' shot was just out of this world. What a beautiful, beautiful shot. It was a perfect shot. Nice little goal. The puck movement that they did on that power play, it was great to see. That Cedar kid from Detroit, or Cider, my bad. Oh, Cedar, yeah. He's phenomenal to watch. He's a really, really good player. He's so calm, collective, the way he does in movements and everything. It's just... Yeah, he's a special player for Detroit, a good defenseman. You could see him developing too, and that superstar already the way he plays. So it's going to be a good matchup for years to come. You have Zegras and Raymond, you have Cedar, and you have Drysdale now. So it's going to be fun to watch. Too bad they don't play each other a lot more. But yeah, it was a good one. I think all eyes were on that Calder matchup, and it's going to be interesting to see who takes that, because I think it's going to be either one of the four players that we've seen in that Detroit and Ducks game. I don't think anyone else really has a chance unless another one of the rookies just comes up and blows everyone out of the water. But I think as of right now, it's safe to say that we have the four runners-up that are going to win that Calder come when the playoffs are over and the awards are given. But it's going to be one of these four players, I predict.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's between one of those four. I know they were talking about it on the broadcast. And, of course, the Ducks guys were all saying Zegras, which... Yes, I want to say that, but it's tight. It's definitely tight. It's going to be difficult. I mean, they're all great players, all four that you mentioned. So that's an exciting thing to watch and see how these guys develop the rest of the season. Like I said, Dostal getting in there. I've been big on this guy. I like him, and I like Stolarz too. And I'll kind of get to that because we'll talk about trade stuff. We got plenty of trade stuff to discuss later in the show, and I'll kind of save my comments for that. But how about another Cam Fowler appreciation moment here, Eddie? He had 35 minutes and 11 seconds of ice time. And I went back through Hockey Reference. I looked at every single game he's played, all of them, regular season playoffs. That is the most he's ever logged in a game, period. The second closest was 35 minutes and 1 second on my mom's birthday, May 5th, 2017. Against Edmonton, and he only had one other game over 30 minutes, which I hate to bring it up because it was the series against Chicago, but that was also in May of 2015 against Chicago where he had 32 minutes and 21 seconds. So just the third game that he's logged over 30 minutes of ice time. I mean, holy crap, Eddie. Like, you talk about Fowler's value. I mean, you really got to see it in these last week and a half or so.
Yeah, that's just totally insane. And that game, it wasn't just a slow kind of paced game. It's the tempo was up there. So he wasn't just kind of skating along, twirling along, spinning around, doing figure eights or whatever around the ice. He was pretty much logging in some serious skating time too. So like that 35 minutes 11 seconds is absolutely nuts, and that's what he brings to the team, that value. I don't know, like I've never been one of those like big on trading him. I think he still brings a lot of value to the team, and he has a lot more to offer to the team, especially that once the team starts transitioning to that team that's going to be contenders every season. I think he's going to play a huge role into that and to being there and being that leader of the team too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just amazing. Amazing what he did in that game. And like you said, yeah, it was a fast-paced game. And the New York game was a fast-paced one too as well. So the Ducks come out with that one a win. It's super exciting. I love seeing Dostal in there doing his thing. He had a couple of plays in there where he got hung out to dry by the defense, but he came up big in the overtime, stopped the 2 shots in the shootout. And I loved his interview after the game. Very emotional guy. I'm kind of on the same level when it comes to things like this. He was just like, oh my God, dude, like we're going to overtime and all this stuff's going on. And then he's like, I getting stressed out in the shootout and it's all exciting, and he's talking about it. And he's just a very, very likable guy, Eddie.
Oh yeah, I couldn't agree more. I love him. So I'm looking forward to more interviews from him in the near future.
Exactly, and same with a lot of. I mean, Zegras is also up there, of course, with all his personality and the way that he acts as well. And it's just funny. This Ducks team really has a lot of character, and it's coming through. So it's good to see. So, we'll talk about the team now, as far as in general, with some news and kind of what's going on and whatnot. We talked about Terry, right? He's on fire. He's been scoring like crazy. He's up to 22 goals now, leads the team. I had to double check, but his shooting percentage now leads the league. For players that have taken 80 or more shots, his shooting percentage is 24.7%, which is just ridiculous. The Ducks are also playing well in special teams. They're still in the top 5. As terms of the COVID thing, it's still Carrick, Gibson, Grant, Leterrier, and Lindholm are still the ones on there. We'll see what happens. Hopefully some more of those guys come out this week. It looks like Grant's going to be available to play. He was put back on the roster, so he'll probably be one of the first ones back. I think the big news was that they had talked about the Ducks forming a GM committee, Eddie, which I like to see this because they got to figure out who they're going to pick, if it's going to be Solomon or somebody else. But they composed it of the owners, the CEO, Michael Schulman, Aaron Tietz, former great Paul Kariya, and Scott Niedermayer. So I like this. I like this approach. They got some players on there, obviously the main people with the Ducks organization, as you would expect. But this is good, Eddie. I mean, the Ducks are going to go through a process, and this is a big deal, and figure out who they can put in there, hopefully for a long time to come.
Yeah, so back on the Terry thing, I pulled the trigger. I bought a Terry jersey, so hopefully I'll make that jersey debut when it gets here. The next game I attend. It should be way before the Ducks and Kings game, so I'm looking forward to rocking that jersey now. I just got to get it signed, and that'd be cool. But yeah, I had to pull the trigger. I've been having that high expectation for Terry, so I'm glad I see it transition. And plus, I was waiting for him to change his number because I knew he wasn't going to keep that 61 number that he had.
Nice.
But back to the committee formed. I think it's a phenomenal idea to have a bunch of heads talk about it instead of just having the owners make a decision on it. Sometimes you have to see other people's perspective, weigh out the pros and cons from someone else because it might differ from yours. They might see something differently, and I think it's gonna pay dividends for the Ducks to have this committee formed so they can make the best possible outcome for the Ducks, and the Ducks can move forward, get someone that's gonna really shoot this team off to the stratosphere, and hopefully bring us another Stanley Cup in the near future. It's great to see Paul Kariya back in the mix. We all know before he wasn't really wanting to be part of hockey or the organization, and he just slowly transitioned to do it. He got over, not got over, but he kind of just came at peace with everything that happened in the past, and it seems like he's at peace now. So seeing his name up there is great. The only name we probably would have all want to see up there was Slonny, but I think, in my opinion, that he was approached for this committee and just decided not to, with everything that's going on with him and his family, which I respect. He's enjoying his retirement, living his best life. He's given up to Ducks, but it's really good to see the Ducks form this committee. And like I said, you're going to have all different perspectives, and it comes down to it. You're going to have this jury kind of giving that final judgment on who they want on there. I mean, ultimately, it's going to come up to the owners, but I think the owners are going to really play into the fact that they have this committee formed, and everyone's going to make that informed decision as a committee, and it's not going to be one person is going to pick this person because of X, Y, and Z. It's going to be this whole former committee is going to pick this person because they're the best person for the job, and they have all the qualities that the Anaheim Ducks hockey organization wants.
Absolutely, and I'm glad that they are in the mix. I mean, Teemu would have been nice in there, maybe even Todd Marchant added in there to figure this out, but they're going to go through a process. They're not going to just, okay, Solomon's in there, we're good. Which, I mean, they may end up picking him anyways, which is, so far I like what he's doing, but we'll have to see. The other thing that's mixed in there too is, Bergevin going over to the Kings as an advisor, but then you found this just recently, right before we did the show, that he's still interested in the Ducks, that hasn't been ruled out either. So we're not going to go into who all the candidates could be. We kind of talked about that before. We might do that a little bit later again if something changes. But that's another name to keep out there besides Solomon in the mix. And I think a couple shows ago we talked about a whole bunch of people in the mix. So just good on the Ducks. Good on them to try and figure this out, take their time, get some of the players involved, especially, Korea having been out of it for a while. He gets his jersey retired. He's kind of been back more in with the team lately. Niedermayer's always been kind of there in the background helping out. So good on the Ducks. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen, especially because the trade deadline's coming up. How are they going to figure that all out? There's just a lot of questions with this team, and it's hard to determine the direction. And going back again to that playoff question, because everyone asks, I don't really know, because what are they going to do at the trade deadline too? I mean, is Solomon still going to be in charge? Are the owners going to give him free reign to do what he's going to have to do or not? There's a lot of question marks with that. I mean, are they going to get someone else in there before then? I don't know. A lot of question marks, Eddie. But at least the Ducks are going to do their homework and go through, and be diligent in this.
Yeah, you know what? One person I want to see on that committee too. It would have been good to see is Mike Walters. That would have been nice to see him being part of that decision. No, but speaking of the fans too, before I forget, I did want to shout out and rewind back to that Vancouver game I attended. I ran into a Ducks fan and DucksNPucks fan too, George. He had nothing but good things to say about both of us, Mike, about the show and how he's a fan of what we do. It really lifted my spirits up and really made me appreciate the fact that I'm doing this with you, and we can have those fans that really like listening and that really get informed by what we're doing. It's a lot of hard work, but we love it, and we love that feedback. It just kind of just fills our energy. So thank you for flagging me down. It was really good and nice to meet you, and your words were just inspiring and lifting, and I couldn't appreciate that even more.
Yeah, absolutely. I love when we run into people and hear that. When you told me that, that's fantastic. A lot you guys make up this show too, because we get a lot of your fan questions, and we always will try to do a fan poll question, which we have that one that we're going to talk about. We're saving that one to the end this time because it's kind of a hot topic. But you guys help out. Obviously, if it wasn't for you guys, I mean, we wouldn't be doing this. So a lot of fun, and I'm hoping to bring you some more stuff. Too, like I said, since we've joined this other network too as well, to kind of make the stuff bigger and keep on going. So with that, I'll mention that too. The network that we joined, the Old City Sports, they have a sponsor, so I'll mention it now before we go into a whole bunch of trade stuff. But they are part of the Body Check Wellness as a sponsor, and which you go to bodycheckwellness.com, but it's check, it's CHEK. So bodycheckwellness.com. Use promo code OCS, all capitals. You get 25% off your order. They have various health products on there like CBD oil and pills and whatnot, and even stuff for your dogs. So check it out. It's kind of been our theme. I was kind of glad about that because we talk about health a lot on our sponsors, and we have those other ones that I'll mention later in the show as well. So check them out, get that discount, and they're going to help us hopefully take this show. I think we're going to have some good things down the road in the future, but I got to wait until things get done. But we're definitely going to improve some of the broadcasts and work on some things to make things a little bit even better for you, because I know a lot of you guys have asked for more stuff and more content, and we're going to work on that. So with that, let's talk about all the trade stuff finally. We've been going through the Ducks and the COVID and all this crazy stuff going on, but more Ducks rumors about trades. We talked about Gibson last time. We had a fan question about that. We had Brandon underscore G86. He asked from Instagram, same thing. Hearing a lot of people talk about Gibson being traded. What's our thoughts? I kind of put that out there from the last show, and I'll have to say with you guys out there, you guys are one or the other. You're all in on trading Gibson, or you're completely upset at it even being mentioned and are like, what are you even talking about? So now, granted, that's before Dolstal played, so I don't know how everybody thinks now after that. But my whole thing on this, and I talked about this way back in the beginning when Gibson came on. I had no problem with his contract as far as the money and signing him to a deal. I just didn't like how long it was. I am not a big fan of these 7, 8, 9-year deals. Not really for any player. But for goalies, that's a tough spot, and they break down. I don't like that length of term. So, is it going to happen or not? We talked about it on the last show, and I said that the Ducks should look into it as far as what they could get. But again, this goes back to the whole GM thing. Is Solomon going to make the decision, or are they going to wait for someone else? And the trade deadline's coming up. There's a lot of question marks. They got to figure that stuff out. So if Gibson is the guy, then there's no point worrying about it. So it's a done deal. Now, if they are willing to entertain offers and they get a really good offer, then are they going to go with Dostal and Stolarz here on out? And that's another thing they got to figure out. They got those guys signed through next season. Dostal's an RFA. Stolarz is a UFA. Both that happens in 23, 24. So I don't know. I mean, it's a crazy situation. I could see the team going either way. I mean, I lean towards at least look into it. That's what I said on the last show. I'm not hard on one way or another. Like, hey, they got to move them or they don't. But what do you think, Eddie? I mean, you think the Ducks should try and trade him and then roll with Dostal and Stolarz, or do you think they just hang on to him? And just don't worry about that, because, obviously we got to worry about Manson, Raquel, and Lindholm. That's another issue, which we're going to talk about that in just a second, because there's other trade rumors with other players. But in terms of just the goalie situation, what do you think, Eddie? What's your take?
You have to make sure Dostal's going to be the real deal. I don't think Stolarz could be that level that Gibson is. I mean, Dostal is kind of projected to be that top goalie for the Ducks in the near future. So if that's the case, you got to get him some more games. You got to get him in the mix a little bit more. Gibson would fetch a huge return. It'd be one of the biggest blockbuster trades you can imagine, and it'd be a game changer for the Ducks, whatever players they get, if they play it right, especially come trade deadline when teams are poised to kind of overpay for players, but that kind of level of goaltender is a game changer for teams that can push them over the edge to get a Stanley Cup. You have teams like Edmonton that has a lot of assets that needs that. The only thing they're missing is that elite level goalie. They have a player like him. Who knows what's going to happen? But you're going to trade a player like Gibson over there. You're going to have to give up, like I said, Drysdale. He has to be part of that. You can't just trade him just for draft picks and prospects that are there that might pan out. You have to have a player that's going to be up there and be an instant superstar and really push his team over that edge. If I'm any GM in any of the hockey teams, including the Ducks, I would take offers and listen to every person on your roster, including Zegras. Because I know how bad that sounds, but you're telling me if you have players like Austin Matthews, McDavid, or McKinnon that these GMs are willing to give up to get Zegras, you better be entertaining those ideas. I'm not saying it's going to happen, and anyone would be crazy to do that at this point. But just saying, every player should be at least entertained, because you never know when a GM can just throw you a big deal, kind of gamble to get a player, a flashy player like that. It could be a game changer. We've seen numerous GMs make mistakes trading players and vice versa. So I think every player on any team too should be entertained the idea of being traded. And any of these GMs should always accept offers, and no one should be off that off limits thing, because I've said it before, it's a typical cliche in the hockey world, but come on, if Wayne Gretzky got traded, I think anyone in the National Hockey League can get traded. There's no safeguard for anyone, minus if you have a terrible contract. But even then, you have a really bad contract, you have teams like Arizona that are willing to eat those contracts up for assets and draft picks. So, I mean, do I think it's going to happen? I doubt it. I think the way the Ducks are... the way they're transitioning to this new team, this new style they're playing, I think Gibson's going to be an asset. He's going to be a game changer too when the Ducks are ready to be serious contenders into the mix. Where every season they're coming in, you have Terry being that elite player, you have Zegras elevating his game, being that elite player, and you really get in the fold of things, and you really are taken seriously as a contender. I think Getzlaf is a goalie that you're going to want to have. But if you have other goalies in the pipeline that can play up to his caliber, then it's something that to consider. And Gibson, he's not going to lose steam in the next few years. He's going to be that elite style goalie for the next few years. Yeah, his contract's a little long, and toward the end of that contract, he's probably not going to be that goalie he once was, but he can still be that pretty much 1B goalie that can still steal you games, that can still come out there and play that good role and be better than just a backup goalie. So it's going to be... that's going to be something interesting. The trade deadline this season is going to be interesting. The committee, not to kind of make a premature decision, but you have to figure out what you're going to do before this deadline comes, because there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. You can't just have them on an interim GM and then bring in someone else after the fact and expect them to clean up the mess. It's just not going to work out. You're setting them up for failure, and that's not fair at all. But yeah, we're going to keep hearing Getzlaf's name or Gibson's name. I'm sorry, I keep saying Getzlaf. I'm thinking about him too much. You're going to keep hearing Gibson's name a lot come up, but I don't think anything happens anytime soon. I think the best time would to trade him if the Ducks came in this season and they were just atrocious again and they weren't getting it together, and like you really wanted to go full rebuild, which we thought this season was going to be that way, but the Ducks are just playing a different style of hockey, and we're seeing them and what they're capable of. So I would say to hold on to them, but just still entertain ideas and still see what value you can get with them. If someone makes you just a completely outlandish offer, then why not pull the trigger and just kind of change the game and change the Ducks if it's going to better them.
Yeah, I'm with you. If they're going to make a trade, it's got to be something stupidly good in favor of Anaheim, because, like you said, yes, Doe still played well, but that was one game. I mean, come on, that's a small sample size. I mean, I don't get me wrong, I'm big on this guy too, but like you said, it's one game. And Stolarz, he's been playing okay. He's been playing good. Yeah, he has too as well. But, I mean, if you're going to do that, then you have to absolutely know that one of those two guys is going to be your guy. And if not, then, I mean, you're going to get into this revolving goalie situation. I don't want that. So I don't think we're there yet. I'm with you. I think the Ducks keep Gibson at least for a few more seasons until they figure out something. Unless, like you said, it's some big-ass, stupid-ass deal that someone's going to throw us some crazy player and picks and stuff. I mean, okay, but I don't see it happening. I really don't. I'm kind of tired of all the trade discussions. Kind of gotten old, to be honest. But I mean, Brandon wanted to ask about it, and it still floats out there, and I still see people talking about it. So I think that's the least of the worries for the Ducks. The biggest thing is trying to figure out what they're going to do with their other players, Manson, Raquel, and Lindholm. And then we had this from Jeff Merrick on Sportsnet. He talked about Jacob Chychrun at Arizona. They're talking about the Coyotes are shopping him. And then he mentioned at least 10 teams were involved, and that the Ducks, Kings, and Blues might be the ones that would fit the bill. Arizona's looking for a young player, a top prospect, and a first-round pick. So that got a lot of people talking about that, and would the Ducks be in the mix? Most of the time I hear these trades and that the Ducks are in the mix, and a lot of times I'm kind of like, I'm not really a big fan. But this is one that I think the Ducks could do, Eddie. Some of the names that come to mind, I talk about young players, thinking about maybe Steele or Comtois, top prospect, Perot or Tracy, draft pick, right? Would that be enough? I don't know positionally if that's what Arizona's looking for. The Ducks definitely have stuff to involve it, and throw in there to be in that discussion and go for this guy. Chychrun hasn't played as well this season, but he had a 41-point season last year in 56 games. He had 26 points the previous season, 63 games. I mean, he's had over 20 points every season except for 2017-18. Solid two-way defenseman, left-handed shot. I definitely think the Ducks entertain this and go for it. I think then, you have to figure out, again, what are you going to do with Manson and Lindholm? I mean, how is this going to figure in there? Are you going to trade these guys? Are you going to give these guys extensions? What's going to happen? So that factors into the decision. But as far as exploring this and talking to Arizona and seeing if you can work out a deal, this is one I think that the Ducks should seriously consider. Like I said, he hasn't played quite as well recently, but he's also playing on Coyotes, right? But he's a solid asset that could help the Ducks, and maybe if they go out and get him, they wouldn't have as much pressure on themselves with Manson and Lindholm. They're still gonna have to figure it out, but at least if you lost one of them, you still had him to come in here and replace. I mean, it just kind of makes sense to me. It's something that the Ducks should seriously consider, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be upset. He's 23. He's young. He'll be a UFA after the 2024-25 season, and he's had a reasonable cap hit, $4.6 million. So we have that leverage on his cap. It's worth worth the gamble to see if he fits the mold of the team. But he's a good defenseman. He's playing on a bad team right now, but he's still just putting up decent numbers for the bad team he's playing on. I know Arizona wants a big return. If they can do something like you said, Steele or Comtois, Perot or Tracy, and a first-round pick, I say pull the trigger on it. I don't know if I'm Arizona, I'd be trying to ask for McTavish, which I would be no on that. If you even think about saying Zegras, it'd be a laughing stock and just hang up the phone right there. Wait till April after the trade deadline so we can make it an April Fool's joke. But I think it's something that the Ducks should consider, especially that they're kind of getting into the serious team aspect now, and it seems like this rebuild it's going to be short, and it's not going to be a rebuild that's going to last for years and years. It seems like the way this team is trending up, that we make a few moves here and there. Some of our players develop and come back next season even stronger. This team's going to be dangerous, and this team's going to be one of those teams that's one of those teams that I not to mess with anymore, and people are going to take us seriously, and everyone's going to be talking about how the Ducks have that chance to win the Stanley Cup each and every season. So I think this is a good move to make. Like I said too, we have a lot of important trade deadline stuff that we had to get through, and we're going to talk about this a lot more come trade deadline comes closer. But you have 3 UFAs that you can't afford to lose. You can't. That's game changing right there. If you lose Lindholm, Manson, Raquel, and you don't get anything in return, someone's gone, and most people are gone. Most of the front office, if you're part of that, in charge of making those kind of decisions, you should be gone. You can't be like other teams to lose big players like that. You got to figure it out or make a move and try to bring a player like him in. If it takes Arizona trying to take away Raquel too, even though he's going to be a UFA, to add him into the mix, just so you're still getting a return from him and add other assets for that. Do that as well, but you have to figure out something, and you definitely have to figure out. I think Lindholm is the biggest asset we have, minus that are the UFAs coming up. So you definitely can't and should not lose him and not get anything in return. If you want to offer him a contract extension, so be it. But he's one of those players that you just can't let walk and not get anything for it. It's just going to be detrimental to the team. It's just going to make whoever's in charge of making those decisions look really bad, and you're going to lose a lot of confidence in what you're doing if you do a move like that. So I think he's a really good trade candidate. It's something the Ducks that should be in the mix for and make an offer, but obviously you're not going to want to get your arm and a leg, especially if we're still in that kind of gray area of what we don't know what we are yet. So it's going to be nerve-wracking. It's going to be fun. I think, Mike, this is going to be a really fun trade deadline for Ducks fans. I think it's something that I'm pretty sure we're both going to try to cover live all day like we have in the past.
Yeah, this one's going to be different, right? No more Bob Murray at the trade deadline, so we'll have to see what happens if Solomon's still in charge, right, or they switch over. But yeah, it's going to be crazy time because, like you said, you got Raquel, Lindholm, Manson. You can't let those three go for nothing. If you do that, that's a big mistake, big time. But yeah, with Chychrun, I'm with you. If they're talking about McTavish, I'd be like, hell no. If it's Zegras or Drysdale, hell no. You guys can pound sand, but. Like you said, like throwing Raquel in there, maybe that's something that they would want. It would fit in their lineup. I don't know exactly what they're looking for in terms of players positionally. They're just saying young player, top prospect, first round pick, according to what Jeff said on the broadcast. So, but I think that if there's a deal to be made there with Anaheim, certainly they could meet that bill, like you talked about. Also, speaking of McTavish too, I forgot to mention this. He was involved in a trade with the at the OHL level. I did mention it. I know some of you freaked out on social media. That wasn't my intent, so I apologize for that. But the OHL Petes and the Hamilton Bulldogs, they made a trade. McTavish was sent to Hamilton for a couple players and a bunch of draft picks. It's just an OHL trade. It doesn't affect his rights with the Ducks and the Anaheim organization. I just wanted to mention that real quick, just so anybody's freaked out about that. I just try to always put out the news for you guys of any little thing that I see that happens. So it was just a little... OHL trade. So nothing affecting. He's still with the Ducks. But back to this. I like Chychrun. I think it's something that the Ducks could look into. Another one that came up there too that's out there is John Klingberg from Dallas. He has requested a trade. Another defensive player out there. This one I'm not as big on as Chychrun. Klingberg's a little bit older, obviously. He's had good seasons. He's had a lot of great, like he's had 30-point seasons every season, except his last season, but or the current season I should say. But again, it's in the middle of the season, so he's another one to look into the mix. But he's older. He's 5-6 years older than Chychrun. Chychrun's the one that I would look at, especially because he's got a couple years left on his contract to look at, but. What do you think, Eddie? I mean, you think they should even entertain this guy at all, or you think Chychrun's kind of the one that they look at? Because these are a couple names that are being thrown out there on the defensive side of the puck.
Oh, Klingberg's a really good defenseman. He had a lot of solid years over there in Dallas. They're having a kind of a terrible season this season, so maybe his numbers kind of translate to that. But you have to stop and think. His age, he's 29 years old. He's about to be a UFA right now. He's having contract disputes right now with Dallas. So I think that's part of the reason why he requested the trade. You have to understand how inflated the defenseman market's going to be come free agency. These players are going to, like I keep referring back to Seth Jones and the contract that he got. Kleinberg's probably going to want 9.5 plus, and he's probably going to get it for a team desperate enough that needs his services. So do you really want the Ducks to pay that 9.5 plus for X amount of years for a 29-year-old defenseman that is going to start his declining years, and Ducks are just stuck with that when we can get someone at 23 years old with a reasonable cap hit, and we can still make other moves to better the team? Yeah, he still has a few years of that kind of elite level player, I would say, but it's kind of worth that risk. Do you want to pay for a defenseman to get a few years out of them, and then when they're on the decline, you're still going to pay them that high amount, and now you're kind of stuck because you have to buy out, and we have to run into the Corey Perry situation where you're paying that cap still in that second year when you bought out. You're paying that enormous amount of it. You can't. It really ties your hands. I think with Chychrun, you have more opportunity to get that higher caliber defenseman. And at 23 years old, he's still kind of developing, and he could still be that better defenseman and that like kind of elite level defenseman too than he already is right now. And you still have flexibility to bring in a scorer, or hey, if you want a solid another solid backup goalie, if you want to entertain the idea of trading Gibson and you want to go grab an elite goalie off the free agency market, you have that opportunity and flexibility to do that. You sign a defenseman $8-9 million plus at 29 years old for 4 or 5 years, you're just kind of stuck. So I think the best, safest route is Chychrun and put him on a better team than what he's playing on right now, and see what he can do. His numbers will probably substantially increase, especially playing on a better team, and he can be kind of a game changer for us. And said we can bring in another asset, and with that money saved, we don't have to just have one hand tied behind our back. And then what translates it to is you bring in these new guys, they don't work out in our system. Okay, cool. We have a guy that could easily be moved with a reasonable cap hit and age. If it doesn't work out with the system or it doesn't gel well with the team, you sign a guy $8-9 million at 29. It's not working out. His numbers are low. Okay, now it's going to be harder. You're going to have to retain salary, and it's just not a good ideal trade or a signing right now for the Ducks. So I think that should be a pass for me.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Chychrun, if they're going to make a move, that would be a guy to go for all the reasons you stated. It makes more sense. Also, it gives the Ducks more options. Klingberg, they could end up getting stuck, and it might not work out as well for them. And like you said, the youth thing is a big thing too, and that's where this team's headed. So I don't think it would be a bad move. So some things to think about. Those two guys are probably on the move, Klingberg and Chychrun. Keep your eye on those guys. If they don't end up in Anaheim, I think there's a good chance both of those guys get moved this season. One other thing that came up with the Ducks in terms of trade, kind of crazy, but David at the fourth period brought up about the Golden Knights thinking about trying to trade for Ryan Kesler. And I know some of you still hit us up about this. So just as a reminder, Kesler still has a contract with the Anaheim Ducks through the end of this season. No, he's not coming back. His hip is just horrible, unfortunately. I mean, he's had surgery and everything, but for him to play and be at the level where he can compete and contribute to the team and all that kind of stuff, it's not happening. I'm sorry, unfortunately, it's not. He's not coming back. So this was kind of mentioned that because, he has that LTIR, that maybe it's something that the Golden Knights, who are in this, they're kind of in the situation now with Eichel, $10 million a year. He's on their LTIR, and they're trying to figure it out what they can do with this. And we did talk about the Ducks trying to trade away Kessler's contract last year before, but I don't really see this happening. I mean, his contract's over this year. There's not really much benefit to it. I mean, if the Knights are trying to unload some other players to make room for Eichel, I guess they could kind of do it. But it's only going to be for, another 3-4 months, and then the season's over with this thing. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I did ask Ken, that runs the Sinbad Vegas podcast, hey, have you heard anything on your end? Because, he's pretty tight in over there with the Golden Knights. And he said no, he hadn't heard anything legit about this being considered, and he's in the same opinion. He just doesn't see it really working out. So I mean, it could help the Knights maybe in a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know, Mike. It seemed kind of weird when I first read that. I had to just go into more detail and see what everyone was talking about. It still doesn't make 100% sense. It seems that there's going to be too many moving parts, and just if he had a little bit more term on his contract, then you can maybe see something working out, assets being retained, blah, blah, blah. And my favorite player, future considerations being thrown in the mix. But it just doesn't seem it'd be the right move for the Ducks or the Knights to make. So I don't know. I know that the Golden Knights are going to have a lot more to talk about, discuss for other teams as far as getting under that cap, because they have Pacioretty and they have Eichel that's been skating and he's ready to come back come February. So they're going to have his $10.5 million cap hit on their books. So it's going to be interesting to see what they do on that level. But as far as Kessler's contract's moving, I can't see that happening at all. Ducks are just probably going to let it ride it out, and he'll be off the books come next season. There's one thing I do want to see, though. I doubt it's going to happen. I'd love to see Kessler come back for a game. Obviously not to play, but just kind of like a farewell, thank you for everything, give him a little tribute, and then kind of go from there. I think he's done a lot for this organization. He was a great player, and he would have continued to give all to this organization if it wasn't for those hip injuries. And like I said, I wish him nothing but the best, and I hope that he finds a solution so he can enjoy his retirement and have a good quality of life for him and his family.
Yeah, I think you hit the big point there, is the quality of life for him. And yeah, hopefully there is some type of retirement ceremony for him, back in Anaheim. So yeah, that's it for all the trade type news for now for the Ducks. Obviously there's going to be more and more of that in the coming weeks. But we'll wrap up here with the league news, some things going on. We had, the NHL came out and said that they're not going to participate in the Olympics. We had Chris.Poage on Instagram asked about who's going to go to the Olympics. Well, it's not going to be anybody on the Ducks, I can tell you that much, and not anybody in the NHL. So they're out of it. The only option is it looks like McTavish might make it for Team Canada, because again, remember, he's playing in the OHL. It's a different thing. They're not guided under the NHL, so he could make it. I don't know if anybody else will. I haven't heard anything else like that. But if it's any of those leagues that aren't affiliated with the NHL, they still have the chance to go play. But they're gonna have to reschedule these games, as we talked about, that have been postponed in February. So the league decided not to have the NHL participate. And if you didn't catch it, Marchand went off on that. He wasn't really happy that the players weren't given a chance. Is his whole issue, and things changed. For the last show, we were talking about how they could redo the games and maybe make a window there for the NHL players to go. But now there's like over 50-something games that are postponed. So I don't really think there'd be any kind of a window in February for a player to go and not miss several games for their team. So it's just an unfortunate situation all the way around. I talked about before, I'm not that big on the Olympics, but it is just crappy that a player can't even make a decision now. So I'm not a big fan of Marchand's, but I kind of understand where he's coming from, Eddie.
Yeah, it's bad. I'm hit or miss, because part of me wanted to see the players in the Olympics, but then part of me doesn't want to risk any injury. I'd been really excited to see how many of the Ducks players would have made it, especially Troy Terry. I wanted to know if his play would have elevated him to make that roster. I think he would have, and just the way he's been playing, he would have been a good addition to it. It's kind of unfortunate, but then you get to stop and think what the old school Herb Brooks said, that logo in front of the jersey is more important than the name on the back. So it's just, whatever country you want to cheer for and represent, I guess that's all that really matters is if that country's going to win. Obviously, USA, both of us are going to go for it. But I love watching hockey in general. So seeing that hockey on that world stage is going to be fun for me regardless. I shouldn't have to say if the logo on the front, because those USA jerseys this season for the Olympics are terrible, but I'll still cheer for USA if USA is not in the mix. Canada will be my next one, but it should still be a fun tournament. You're going to get guys opportunities that they wouldn't have never have had. You might see other guys that are non-pro players get that standout, former pro players that are playing in European leagues or over there in Russia get that opportunity to kind of get back into that mix and maybe get some closure for themselves. They didn't have that closure as far as the NHL. So it should still be a fun tournament, even though some of our favorite players aren't going to be on it. I would really hope, and I doubt this is going to happen, but I really would hope that they would just put rosters of who would have made it if the NHL players are going, because I'm really curious to see what surprises were going to be out there, who made it, what players from the Ducks would have been in the mix. Obviously, John Gibson, Troy Terry were ones, but is there any other players that could have been in the mix? So that'd be fun to see if they actually did that and posted who would have made it. But then again, that kind of sucks for the players that aren't going, but that's a nice selfish fan talk.
Yeah, it's just an unfortunate situation, and now with everything going on, rescheduling, I get it. I don't even know if guys would want to go because they're going to miss with their team. What's going on now? You kind of put players in a no-win situation, because it's like, okay, I want to go represent my country, but then I'm not gonna, I'm gonna miss X amount of games depending on how all this rescheduling goes. It's just a total cluster F. But that's where it's at. So the NHL won't be in the Olympics. And then you did have the IHF. They had canceled most of their tournaments, but then they had the existing men's that was going on. McTavish was in that. He had some goals. Then they ended up canceling that one too. So there's none of that. But that caused a lot of outrage as well, because you had the women's divisions that did not play, and they said it was canceled instead of postponed. So I don't know what's going to happen with the IHF, but they got a lot of heat. So we didn't even get to watch McTavish there, for a couple of games, and then that was it. So that's gone. So now it's back to the NHL, and we'll talk about the poll question in a minute. Just kind of crazy stuff going on there. So it's just like I said, be prepared for uncertainty. That's the only thing that is certain, unfortunately. But we had some stuff around the NHL, some kind of interesting stuff. We had Marc-Andre Fleury. He was on the Knights, right, in Pittsburgh, but now he's on Chicago, and he is the first NHL goalie to have a win against every other team. So I thought that was amazing. And then you've also got 6 NHL players that have scored against every team: Pacioretty, Brassard, Kessel, Granlund, Hoffman, and Lucic. So some pretty interesting stats there, Eddie.
Yeah, that's something really special. It's one of those things, especially for him. I think everyone loves Marc-Andre Fleury. He's like the Slonny of goaltenders, I guess. I think him and Carey Price are one of those goalies that everyone just loves. So him getting being the first goalie in NHL history to get a win against every NHL team against his last former team, the Golden Knights, that was really special for him. That those 6 players too that scored a goal against every team, that was actually pretty interesting to see. Milan Lucic in the mix for that. I know we all know what kind of player he is and how his decline. So I guess that's a special stat for him to have. He's going to be part of that. Only 6. I'm looking forward to a Ducks player getting in this category. Hopefully soon in the future we have a player, Troy Terry, since he's going off this season. Hopefully he just keeps going and going and going. He's be one of the players, but it's gonna be fun to see Ducks player get in one of these stat categories.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting when you can do that against every single team. Obviously, it has to be some kind of a trade involved in there, because I mean, if you're gonna score against, you can't score against your own team, right? Well, the Ducks, unfortunately the Ducks did have some of that this week. Sadly, but yeah, I mean, it's an amazing feat, and yeah, I'm with you. I think Fleury is kind of like the Solani of goalies. He's well liked. I like him too. I mean, he's exciting to watch. He's also another one with a good personality too. So, just some things that have happened recently and some stats there to keep in mind. Now going towards someone that's not your favorite player, we had Evander Kane again in the news, and San Jose decided that they're done. And they put him on unconditional waivers and terminated his contract. But now the Players Association's gotten involved and they're filing a grievance. I really don't know how this is going to work out. It's a cluster F. Issue is obviously over money. I just don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't really know how it's going to play out. It's kind of, I don't know if the situation's happened before like this where it's gone this way. I have to double check, but I don't remember a situation similar to this. And then, of course, people aren't happy with the Players Association. I mean, they got to do what they got to do. They got to protect their players regardless of what their players do and whatnot. But I don't know, Eddie. What do you think about this? I mean, I think Kane should be gone. But what do you think about the Players Association getting involved in this?
Well, apparently he violated an AHL COVID protocol. That's what kind of made this contract termination be pushed forward and him being placed on waivers. But I can't see a team taking a chance on him. People say he's still an elite scorer. He has too much looming over his head. It's too much drama. Do you want to just bring that kind of negative energy to your locker room? Every team he's been on, there's been issues with him and teammates with him and management with him, discipline issues. I mean, like, how many chances can you get? You're a professional NHL hockey player. The key word is being professional, which comes first before professional athlete. You haven't acted professional in your career. The drama you brought through the league, where you're having news outlets that never cover hockey, that covered stuff like this, makes this league look like a disgrace. I think you're done. I don't think any team should take a chance on you. I think it's time for you to leave on a jet plane and don't come back. Go to the KHL. You'll fit perfect over there. And it's just, I think it'd be a bruise and a kind of a step back for the NHL to bring a player like this back in the groove of mix. And I think any team that does this would just be desperate for anything. It's going to be a mistake, and their locker room is going to suffer from this, because you think other players or other teams aren't looking at this and seeing like, what the hell is going on? There's video of him holding a gun to his wife and threatening her. Like how much more can you get with this guy? How many more chances can you get? This guy is just a cancer to hockey. He doesn't belong in this league at all. He just, like I said, you know what? In my opinion, too, I think the KHL is even a step up for him. I think he should never play professional hockey again in his life. You know what? Screw it. I don't think he should be part of a beer league team, because I've never seen any beer leaguers act like his behavior and do that. So he just cut it. Be broke. go get a normal job like the rest of us, and be done with hockey.
Oh, well said, man. I don't have anything to add. I'm with you. I'm over it. But that's where it's at right now. So we'll see what happens with the Players Association, that grievance, if it goes anywhere, if anything. But yeah, he should be done from hockey like forever. So now, what's the deal with the league? What's going on? I know a lot of people are frustrated. The players of having all these positive tests. A lot of them, no symptoms. Players aren't sick. They're not being able to play. I know, especially for the Ducks, they're very frustrated. Only Sam Carrick, as of right now, is actually sick. So we put out a poll question, what do you guys think that the league should do? We gave you basically three choices. We said proceed as is, shorten it, or change testing. And then we also had an option, if you think other, put something else out there. But I was surprised. Most of you out there said just keep on going as is. It was like almost half of you felt that way. And then there was another chunk of you, a little over 40%, said to change the testing. And then a very, very small percentage, I want to say 4 or 5%, that said shorten the league down. So I think it's interesting. One thing that came up is that when the Ducks had the wave of all those positive tests, then Aiken said that they were using a different test and that it would take a little bit longer. But I don't know. It seems maybe it's more accurate because that was, I want to say that day when they were supposed to play Detroit, I think they switched maybe that Friday. And I don't know which tests are which. I'm not really sure, so I can't speak to that. But the Ducks have been fine, knock on wood, since then. So, I'm kind of like, yeah, what tests are we using? I mean, what are we doing here? And I did mention on the last show about the NFL. The NFL is not testing everybody as much. So, I mean, I think something's got to happen. I mean, they did the taxi squad thing. That made sense. But what do you think, Eddie? I mean, half the people think just keep on going as is. And then almost half think, well, yeah, keep going, but do something with the testing. So what's your take on all this?
Figure it the F out, because it's a big disaster. It's getting to the point, it's so annoying to try to watch at times. All these postponed games, all these COVID protocols. You have a stuffy nose or something, it seems like going on the protocol. I mean, what do you expect? It's called cold and flu season. It just happens every season. I can tell you every single year the 2 times I'm going to get sick. And it happens every single year. And it happened this year. Am I supposed to rearrange my whole life because of that? No, I'm not. Because I know, for the past 10 years of my life, the exact times I'm going to get sick within a week or two. And it always happens, never fails. And go figure, it comes at these certain times for cold and flu. Or it's just... something has to change. Not everything is COVID. Not everything should be labeled as COVID. They need to fix this really quick. If not, I'd say cancel the damn season. If you're going to be this retentive about it and not really dive into it and not just let the league go as is, what's going to happen when playoffs happen? If something happens like this, you're losing 3-4 players and now a team's just going to be jeopardized. What if the Ducks really turn it around, they get some players they add, and they really become serious contenders? Come postseason, you're missing 3-4 guys because they have the sniffles, they have allergies, they get that summer cold. I don't know, they eat something spicy, they cough too hard or something, and all of a sudden they're in COVID protocol, and now you're missing some of your best players, and now the Ducks are out of a playoff mix, and they lose because of that. You have to do something to fix it. If you're going to just continue this way, I'd say just cancel it. I don't want to see the season canceled. I want to see it played out. It's just getting ridiculous, and it's getting annoying, and I'm sure the players are annoyed with it. And we had that fan question earlier, the whole rust thing. You're going to take another break before the postseason, bring all these teams back, and they're going to be rusty, and it's just not fun, not a good look. You have to figure it out. Other leagues have figured it out, so why can't you? It's like you want to follow the leagues and doing all the other crap that you want to do with advertisements here, advertisements there, and try to be like those other leagues. All right, well, try to be like them now and emulate that and follow their testing procedures, that they're not getting all these players on COVID protocols every single day or canceling all these games.
Yeah, frustration is the key word there that you've hit on, Eddie, and I think that's been the problem with this is it's like every game day now, I don't even know what to expect anymore. It's like I do the game preview and then I put what's on there at that time, and then it changes 5 times during the day. And if you guys don't know, I do update the game previews throughout the day. Sometimes I wait till about an hour or so before the game, because it's like you just don't know when there's moves done and what happened. And then the Detroit one, it was completely like, oh, well, we're just going to do this another day. I'm like, oh, okay. So, I mean, there was a lot going on that day. So it's not easy and it's frustrating. And, and I think it's very frustrating for the players, because you have to understand they have to go get tested all the time. I mean, they can't practice with positive tests. So, I mean, it's like you out there, you're going to work every day, you get tested. The test comes back positive, now you can't go to work. I mean, they did shorten it from 10 to 5 days per the CDC, which is good. But, I mean, there's been issues with testing. There's no doubt about that. There's a lot of false positives going on. They've talked about this. LeBron had that. I'm not a big fan of his, but he talked about it. It's happened with NFL players too. So I don't know what new test Akins is talking about. Hopefully, if that one's more efficient, they can at least do that. But they definitely got to figure out something, because it's going to be a problem. And then if people are losing in the playoffs and all this other kind of stuff, I mean, I don't know. It's a cluster, but I think they have to figure out something and change something, or else it's going to be just uncertainty forever. And it just, I don't know, for the players, it's got to be frustrating, because you're trying to go to the rink and practice, and then you find out you have that come back as positive, but then you're not sick and you have no symptoms. Now you're out for 5 days, then you try to retest to come back. I mean, it's just a cluster F, the whole thing. So we'll see what happens. I mean, the Ducks still got 4 games to redo, and a lot of other teams have all that too. So I think February is going to be an interesting month now. It's going to be nothing, but now it's going to be full of games. So no updates on that. The league hasn't really changed anything other than, like I said, Aiken said the Ducks are using new tests, which I don't know what those are. So that's where we're at right now. The Ducks are still battling out, like we said. Yes, they're in the playoff mix. We'll see how they do. A lot of questions with the GM. They're doing the search. They're going to try and figure it out. I still think it's an exciting time. The Ducks are still fun to watch. You had a lot of these players debuting this time, this last week or so, Eddie. So the uncertainty part isn't good, but it's still fun to watch the Ducks. They're being competitive, and you're getting to see a lot of young talent on the ice. So that's the good part of this.
Yeah, it's fun. I said before, this season has been different from those seasons before. Seasons before, just it's like you could predict the Ducks how they were going to play. I mean, Mike, we've talked about it numerous times. We've watched some horrible games. We're like, whoa, what's going on? Like, I'd rather watch paint and dry at some of the games that we watched, but this season has been different. It's just, you've seen a lot of energy. You've seen the team having fun. Zegras brings a lot. He's a ball of energy, and I think the way he is, it just kind of grows on people. He's just always funny. He's always talking. He's always laughing. You see him on the bench, the smile on his face, his expressions. I've heard Getzoff talk about his personality. Our coach talk about his personality. I think he's one of those players that just kind of helps everyone else around him relax by his calm demeanor and his personality. It's good to see. And I don't know, this team just looks a lot more relaxed and loose. Now, I really think that rebuild word and Bob Murray, I think that was the best thing he could have done for the team, was finally come out and admit that this team is going through a rebuild. So it takes the pressure off the players, and the players can just go out there, they can play hockey, have fun, and that's what it seems like they're doing. It seems like every game they're having fun. Yeah, they get frustrated, of course, but for the most part, it's like every game they're just playing with that loose level style, and they really just are gelled well, and you could just tell the chemistry on this team is just out of this world, and that's something you love to see, and it's something that you should be like absolutely excited for the future. This team, just the way it's going to be a dangerous team again, and I really just can't wait until we're talking about like Stanley Cup playoffs or be a contender, or hell, even winning that Stanley Cup, because now it seems more in a reachable point than it did a few seasons ago.
Yeah, we've definitely turned the ship back around and going back in a better direction for sure. Where before it was like, oh my God, when is this going to end? We're playing like horrible. So definitely a lot of positives for the Ducks. Still in the mix. Still going to be an exciting season. A lot of young talent. See what happens with this team. Keep doing our shows and everything like that. I guess just to kind of end here, we had, that tragedy with the Balkan family. So we just want to give our thoughts and prayers out to them. They lost their son who had a freak collision on ice. So I just wanted to put that out there. The hockey community is a tight community, so just thoughts and prayers with their family. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Eddie. Just kind of seemed like a freak play, but just want to throw that out there as we wrap out the show and wish them the best. It's got to be tough.
No, yeah, I know. I think you said it perfect. Thoughts and prayers to his family, to anyone else, to everyone that's lost their lives. That's part of the game. It's just like you said, we're a tight community. You go places, it's like you meet a hockey fan, you're instantly drawn because there's so few of us, minus Canada. You guys are awesome over there. You guys are hockey fans everywhere, but it's one of those things that's sad. We wish it didn't happen, but it did, and all we had to do is just give our thoughts and prayers for his family, and hopefully the healing process could begin for them, and they can kind of move forward and never forget his memory, and always remember every good thing that he's accomplished at his young age.
Well said, Eddie. Just to wrap up, don't forget to check out, we have buckedup.com. You can go to use the code DucksNPucks93 for a discount there. We also have zstacklife.com for multivitamin. I got a discount on there for you guys now. Just type in my name, Mike. You'll get, I think, 5 or 10%. I'm not sure exactly what. I can't remember right now, but another discount for that. So kind of in line with our health sponsor type thing that we're going with. So looking forward to doing a lot more things in the future. And like I said, we'll talk about those as the time comes. But thank you for the support and all the questions. Again, hope you guys had a good Christmas and New Year's. And we'll be back hopefully in a week. And let's go Ducks.